All right, so that was just a brief word, I think, on the psychology, I think, of Black relationships, and he was speaking more or less to the way I can share the clip, Monique. I'll do it after the presentation. He was speaking more or less to the ideas that we have about one another and the expectations that we have about one another, and he was more or less saying that we need to examine those ideas and those expectations to figure out where they came from. You know, what's to say men are supposed to be this way or women are supposed to be that way? And are we taking into consideration the context of Black relationships and the things that have been put in place? Sometimes I don't know whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, but the things that are there that divide us, the ideas that are there that divide us, and we just need to examine those things. And I think it's just a cautionary tale for anybody, and I include myself in this bunch, who talk about relationships, Black relationships in a public matter, to be mindful of the way in which we're talking about these relationships, to make sure that we're doing it in love and we're not disparaging one another, because we are, in a lot of ways, we are the culture that exists. You know, we can be perpetuating negativity or we can be perpetuating positivity, and we just need to be mindful of that. So I thought that was a quick little word to get us started into this. And I think thinking about the psychology that we have, the thought processes that we have about one another, I think was a good segue to lead us into this conversation tonight. So welcome to the group, new and old members. A few quick slides, a little bit about what this group is about: learning, teaching something new, socializing with other positive people. We do online and in-person meetups. We're not a singles group, we're a friends group. So there's different expectations with that. This here is from Pew Research. And as you can see, 50% of singles, and this is for all races of people, aren't really looking for a committed or relationship of any kind. And I think that trend more or less continues with this meetup group, where not everybody here is necessarily here for hold on, somebody mute up if you just joined in. Marco, if you could see who that is, see if you can mute him up for me, boss. Thank you. Yeah, so a lot of people, and that's the same thing with this meetup group. So not everybody here is for a relationship, but we do a lot of relationship conversations, and I'll talk about that in a second. So we're a meetup group that's created for Black people, but we don't discriminate on others based on race, religion, or sexual orientation. And we're about encouragement toward meaningful relationships and friendships. So some context as to why we're having these relationship conversations online here is to meet new people and see where they stand on important relationship issues. Is to learn more about the opposite sex, to see what they think about different things. And as you can see, this is a child living arrangements by race and ethnicity. And this is from the Institute of Family Living Studies. And as you can see, in the Black community, children that live in home with both parents are the lowest of any other group. And I have a little slide on more about why that's an issue or why that's a problem here in a second. But this is some Black marriage statistics as of 2019. As you can see, our status to marriage is we're the lowest of all other groups in terms of marriage. So it's 50% have never been married, whereas for all the U.S. is 34%. So we're lagging behind on that. This is some more data that I came across recently, and we're looking at the marriage rate versus the divorce rate. This is going to be a really data. I hope y'all like data, because this is going to be a really data heavy presentation, because I like data, because I think that can kind of give us a path forward. So y'all gonna get a lot of data here, and I'll try to flesh some of it out, and I'll try to hopefully it can be somewhat informative and educational for us, but just a forewarning. But as you can see, in all communities, the marriage rate is represented by the black dots here. So out of 100 people, about 17 or so people are getting married. Now, of those married people, 30% within this given year of 2018 of the folks that are married have experienced or having a divorce rate. And as you can see, for us, if you look at these other charts, the numbers are flipped upside down. So it's pretty disparaging what's happening with the marriage and divorce rate here. So we're the least likely to get married, and consequently, we're also the most likely to get divorced. So we got two things working against us. You know, we're least likely to get married, most likely to get divorced. So that's not a good if we were charted out as it's charted out here, it doesn't look good. So the history of Black marriages prior to the 1960s and 70s, we were the most married, and as you can see here in the chart here, and then something began to change after the 60s and 70s, and as you can see, we became the least married of all groups, and that chart represents this. But the thing that I want to ask here, and I want us to think about, and I want to frame a lot of conversations going forward, is the division was it engineered, was it created, was it like is it a program or something that's to create a lot of this dysfunction. Was slavery possibly part of the issue? Was feminism? I know a lot of feminists, but was feminism, could there be some negative elements of feminism that may be contributed to the division? Is there some elements of the patriarchy or chauvinism that may have contributed to the division that we see today? What about racism and the lack of jobs and the lack of opportunity that we have? If a man's not able to go to work and make a decent living, do you think that's going to affect the way that women see him? Is that something? Mass incarceration, the crack era, fatherlessness, is that something that could contribute to it? Single parent homes, is that something that was engineered and created? What about welfare? We know that a lot of folks need welfare, but is that something that possibly may have contributed to things? What about the music we listen to? What about the messages that we're hearing in music? Kanye was just in the news recently, and we saw him talk about how, certain music is supported, how, they put the money behind certain music that is not sending healthy images of us out there. So what's happening there? What about media? What about the new media that we're hearing today? A lot of these podcasts, a lot of folks who are coming up talking about relationships. What are they saying? What is this bringing us together, or is it tearing us apart? What about the old media? What about the old magazines where we were talking negatively about one another? What about that? What about the talk shows, the TV shows? Has that all been contributing to a lot of the dysfunction that's keeping us apart? What about the current culture we're in today? Red pill movement, like Rochelle said in chat. Yes, all of it. Matthew said all of it. What about hookup culture that we're in now? Does that contribute to the downfall of relationships today? What about online dating and social media? Do we think that there's some element to that may be contributing negatively to relationships today? I think so, and I got something to prove it a little later. And just improper socialization. Our last conversation, Kevin had talked about how men weren't socialized to be husbands. And I would also argue that I don't know if women were in our community were socialized to be wives, because for a lot of us, 70% of us, we haven't seen it represented. So does that play into the fact of what's the engineering that's affecting Black relationships? So I just want to frame that conversation. So why do relationships matter? Basically, because when you have relationships, and I'm talking about romantic relationship marriages, you have better outcomes. And I'm just laying it out, y'all, to try to explain why we have relationship conversations, because relationships matter. When you have relationships, you have better outcomes. As you can see by Yahoo Finance, the wealth gap between single and married people over the last decade, the wealth of married folks doubled, where the single folks, it didn't. So we're getting outpaced. And if, as a Black community, we talk about the racial wealth gap. If we're the least married, how do we make up the wealth gap? You want to fix the wealth gap, fix marriages, fix relationships. This is why I think marriages and relationships are the key issue of our time. You can see here, this other chart here is about crime. Crime goes down when people are together, in the crime in communities where families are present, where father's in the home, where the mother's in the home, and they're not in prison, not all this other stuff. The outcomes are better in those communities. Crime is less. As you can see here, with two parents, there's two paychecks. So that could move you from a whole different class, from the middle class to the upper middle class, or from the working class to the middle class, when you have two people working together to raise a family and raise a child, versus one person doing it all their own. I know that, sometimes life happens and a lot of folks are coping and adjusting, but when we spread this out and we push it across the whole group, what's happening? So children who in two-family homes are more likely to finish college, find good jobs, and have a stable marriage themselves. And this slide is more or less saying the same thing that I just explained. So children who marry are more likely to finish college, get good jobs, and form stable marriages in the future. But enough about that. That's just laying the framework. We're going to get on to the topic at hand, but I just wanted to explain to people why it is that relationships are important, why we talk about relationships, even in a group that I say is not a relationship group and a friends group, because relationship dysfunction is a major issue that's happening right now. But tonight we're talking about, are men today intimidated by successful women and scared of commitment? That's tonight's conversation. We're planning a New Year's Eve party. So if you haven't seen that notification on Meetup and you would like to attend, please go ahead and hit your RSVP. I'm going to put a deadline for accepting payments for December 17th, just so we can figure out and get a gauge of if it's viable or not. Right now, we're at about a quarter of the budget we need to pull this event off. We're there. So we still need to get more people to go ahead and get their ticket in, so we can go ahead and say whether this event is a go or it's a no-go. But right now we're looking good. But if you do plan on attending, go ahead and make your deposit, and we can get rolling with that. let's see here. Go ahead and make sure you follow us on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, we're Positive Black PPL. All right, so just some definitions, laying the groundwork for this conversation, because a lot of times people, when we do these things, they say, well, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? Because these terms may come up throughout tonight. So I just want to lay out some important definitions. So when we say successful women, as in the title, what do we mean by that? So by successful women, the main metric that we're looking at is income. And for Black women, if you make $60K a year or more, you're in the top 10% of women. And so by all measures, when we talk about a successful woman, we're talking about these sort of women who make $60K or more. I know some of you, and I think with our meetup group, and I think just in general in Atlanta in itself, a lot of people, a lot of sisters make that. So there are a lot of successful women by all metrics. And we can also, I think we can tack in education there, like college educated, although some may or may not be, but I think that's also something we can use to kind of talk about when we talk about successful women. So for the most part, we're talking about women who are able to take care of themselves and are doing that exceedingly okay. 60K a year, you're in the top 10%. Okay, so that's what we mean when we say, generally what we mean when we say a successful woman. Hypergamy is a term you often hear these days, but it's basically this: the practice of marrying or forming a sexual relationship with a person of a superior social status or resources. Most women practice hypergamy. Most women practice hypergamy. So that's what hypergamy is basically just marrying up, dating up, whatever you want to call it. That's hypergamy. So intimidated, what does the word intimidated mean? Nervous, anxious, or insecure because you're not confident in the situation. So the question at hand is, are men intimidated by successful women? Yes, Anna, most women practice, well, I don't know about in the Black community, but most women at least desire to practice hypergamy, to date a man who makes more than them. Nika in the comments, she said, honestly, I feel like it's a different word choices need to express what women are truly saying on this. It's more so insecurities, financial growth, education, just as a word to find. Let me go ahead and admit Shauna in there. Lack of confidence, uncertainty, or anxiety about oneself. Instead of partnering together, relationships aren't succeeding due to one person going hard towards their goals in the future than the other. Is become more of a competition. So I hear what you're saying there, Nika, but the intimidated, it is the right word that I think sisters want to express, although it may not be the best word. Maybe insecure about things, that could be a word, or lack confidence, but lacking the term lacking confidence is in the definition of intimidated itself. Anxiety is also in the definition. So it's more or less saying the same thing. And that's what we're trying to ascertain here. So a little bit about the data, where it all came from, because sometimes with these conversations, people say, where'd you get that data from? Da, 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 da. And I'm not going to do it for every single thing I pull up. You can go research it yourself. It's easy. Google, just bam. Pew Research, U.S. Census, Black Demographics, University of Chicago, Stanford University, Institute of Family Living Studies, Harvard Business Review. They obtain information through Glassdoor, Center for Community and Economic Development, and American Sociological Association. I forgot to add that up there, but I also grabbed some data from them. So that's where all the data is coming from. So just breaking down the numbers here. And the thing I have here on the side here, who should be concerned and should not be concerned, at least in terms of like if you're a woman and you're trying to find men, is it more or less likely that you're going to find men who are intimidated or not intimidated? So I have that kind of put there on the right of the screen here. But this graph here is by Black Demographics. And as you can see here, if we look at the different categories, when we look at, let's see, by salary, under 20K, there are more women. This is for millennials here, just millennials. When we look at, and as you can see, it's pretty even kill for millennials in terms of finding a man who's on your same income bracket with millennials. We're talking 40 and under for the most part. That, you know, this number is just taking the whole group of 25 to 40. So, but I think as these numbers go up, these metrics begin to change, and we can get more into that why. So who should not really be concerned about this is Gen Z women. And I put plus because they really, you know, finding a man who's not going to be intimidated by a Gen Z woman because they're at a different stage in life. You know, there's a higher chance that they're not going to find men who are intimidated by them. And so according to this graph, too, millennials, you shouldn't be that concerned. You can still find a man somewhere within your same income bracket for most millennial women. So now we get into Generation X, which is 41 through 55. And we look at the numbers here. And as we can see, there's a change here. More women in every category for Gen X women, there are more women than there are men. And those numbers balloon up, especially in the 20 to the working class, 20-50K working class. There's way more women making more money than men in that demographic. In the 50 to 100K, there's way more women making more money than men in that demographic there. And in the 100K and up for Gen X women, there are way more women than there are men. So I think that there's a legitimate cause for concern if men are intimidated by women who make more. I guess we still have to break that point down, but I think that those women should kind of be thoughtful about it. So who should be concerned? Gen X women, high income earning, hypergamous women, I think also should be a little concerned about finding a mate who's not going to be intimidated by them. And I'll explain that why in a second here. Who should not be concerned? Women who date significantly older men. And I'll break that down a little bit later. I don't think that women who are dating men who are significantly older, I don't think that they should be that concerned because there's data. Let's see here. So get this data here because England. So this comes from Stanford University, and it says that men in their 40s tend on average to be 7 years. Let's see, brides in their 40s on average tend to be 7 years younger than their husbands, while in their 50s they tend to be 10 years younger. So what basically I just pulled all that up to say is that a man reaches his peak income earning potential the older he gets. So if you're a woman and you're dating men who are older, it's more likely that these men have more resources. So they're not going to be as intimidated, I don't think. Let's see here. So, but the summary, just to sum it all up, the older women become, the more economically self-sufficient they become, but the less economically viable mates are available to them. So that's just a summary of those graphs there. So the problem when women date down financially, and this is why. So this is where we're getting into it here, and when we talk about intimidation and why that happens. So, and just some of the data around that. So when women date down financially, there's a greater risk for divorce. Your chances for a divorce increase 50% when a woman dates down financially. Could intimidation have something to do with that? I think so. But research by University of Chicago, both School of Business found that married women earning more increased probability of unhappiness in her marriage. The study found that a woman making even $5,000 more than her husband was at greater risk for the divorce. So it increases 50%. Let's see here. Data from the family studies hold that reporting having marriage decline when woman earns her husband, with the likelihood of divorce being 50%. So there we go. So there's a greater risk for infidelity, up to 5 times greater risk for infidelity. This is for situations in which a woman's completely financially supporting is 5 times, but the numbers are still high for even when there's a greater risk for infidelity, even when it's not that extreme as to when a woman's fully support. But 5 times more likely to be cheated on when the woman is supporting a man financially or when she's the main breadwinner. And there we go. So in fact, men who are completely dependent on their partners for income were 5 times more likely to cheat than men who contribute an equal amount of money in a relationship, according to research presented annual meeting for America's Sociological Association. Let's see here. And this person, the sociologist, stated, let's see here, having multiple sexual partners may be an attempt to restore gender identity in response to these threats, she writes. In other words, for men, sex outside their relationship may be an attempt to compensate for feelings of inadequacy. That's that insecurity when we talk about intimidation with respect to their gender. Now, that's just one person's thought process about that, but I think there's some validity to it. And this here is a chart, and I shared this in the group chat here, but as we can see, and let me just break this chart down here. So relative income is just income as compared to other people. On the left of the chart is people who don't have a lot of disposable income in relation to other people. And to the right of the chart, people who have more income, relative income in relation to other people. And as you can see here, in the middle is the center here. Infidelity is the least likely when couples more or less are around the same income bracket and making the same amount of money. But for when men here on this side here, as you can see, this dotted line is women, the more money a woman has, the more faithful she is, basically, is what this says. But if you check out with men here on this, represented by this line here, the less money a man has, the more likely he is to cheat. And that's way up here. Now, men with money here, there's still a high percentage chance of cheating, but it's not as extreme as we saw with men who are broke. So broke brothers are cheating more often than not. Could that be a sign of insecurity or intimidation? I think so. But we can break that down a little bit more as to why that is. People are still pouring in here. Just admit all these people. All right. So also, women who make more are at a greater risk for domestic violence. 35%. 35%. So domestic violence committed on female partners and heterosexual couples occurs significantly more frequently when the woman earns more than men, according to their findings, about 35% more often. So that's pretty significant. So could that be a sign that a man is intimidated by women? We've often heard it said, and women have brought it up time and time again, that they're finding that men are intimidated by them. And I think there's some validity to that. Because it's not my experience, and I always just kind of wrote it off. But when I look at the data, it kind of seems to bear that out. So that's some data around it. So that's the problem when women date down financially. So this is why a lot of these, when we talk about advice, when we talk about like what should women do, one thing I used to, because there's a shortage of men, I used to say women need to have a lot more grace for men when it comes to income. But when you look at the data, it appears that telling women to have grace and approaching relationships in which they're not the primary breadwinner, it's a more risky endeavor for women on several levels. So I just think that's interesting. I just got to put that out there. But as with relationship advice, I think a lot of it is gray. So part of how this conversation got started is a post that was posted. It says, why are women finding it more difficult nowadays to find a man that will marry them? And my good friend Simone, she had said, well, why is the question even like that? The question should be, why are men today scared of commitment? And I thought that was a good question, because a lot of times we see online, they frame a lot of these discussion points on the women. Why something's wrong with the women in the argument, but why is it? Can we examine the men? What's happening with the men? And so these are some theories so we're answering the question, are men intimidated by successful women and scared of commitment? So why? Let's see here. And I'll just hit the highlight here. It said, men report the main reason they resist marriage is that they can enjoy many of the benefits of marriage without getting married. That is through cohabitation. So when we ask, why are men scared of commitment? I don't know if it's scared of commitment is the thing. I think the thing is more or less is they're scared of the downsides of marriage. So they're really hesitant and avoiding of it. And also they get a lot of the benefits already of marriage in today's society. It's kind of like, y'all, we've all heard the term, why buy, yeah, somebody just said it, why buy the cow? Yeah, why buy the cow when you get the milk for free? So men, Kevin's scrunching up, but that's why a lot of men, I think, are not committing, because they're already getting the milk. So why buy the cow? You're getting the milk for free. Let's see. Further, they report experiencing almost no social pressures of marriage, not from family. Family's not pressuring them to get married. Friends aren't pressuring them to get married. I'm that friend that's going to pressure folks to get married. I just put that out there. And not from families of the women they live with. So even the woman's family isn't saying, hey, what's your intentions with my daughter? What's happening? Let's see. They associated marriage with the number of increased responsibilities. So men look at marriage as just like a hassle. I think also we hear other men who are married talk about marriage and they cast in a negative light. So we hear other men, we're going to learn from their experience, like, man, don't get married, man, don't do it. Because we men tend to complain about their marriages. So, and we see that, and then we reflect that in a lot of ways. Let's see here. He said, let's see, I cannot imagine such beliefs as any less prevalent now. So that's why I think men aren't committing. I think that's mainly the reason. It's just, there's no reason. They haven't been given good enough reason to commit. Basically, I don't know if it's a fear thing. They might be just fear of losing resources, fear of it not working out. And I think also they're looking at this chart here, or this highlight here, they're looking at their roles and their responsibilities going to change. It says his argument rests on the potency of social role of husband. In general, he argued, men begin to see themselves as fathers, providers, and protectors, whereas a single man, there's really no high expectation for a man to be a provider. But I think for men, when they get ready to get married, they take a lot of pride in that. And that's something that we don't take haphazardly. If we're going to get married, we want to be a provider, we want to be a protector. So if I guess we can kind of think about that, I think that economic instability or men not being where they're at, I think plays into the fact of why a lot of men aren't committing, because they just not where they want to be at financially. Let's see here. And as we can see and I want you to break this down, this from Pew Research here. But when you look at different breakdown, this thing is asking views on the importance of being a provider differ along demographic lines. But if I just can y'all can entertain me for a second here. If we look at the Black community, the expectation to be a good husband or good partner is the highest in the Black community than any other community. So there's a high expectation that men and women have for men to be good providers in the home. And that's the highest of any group. So this this high pressure, I think, is steering a lot of men away, both from themselves and externally from other people, because they're saying, well, dang, it's like there's a lot of pressure here to get married. Like they don't see it as a win. They see it as like, okay, this is going to be a lot of pressure that's put on me. So I'm a little bit hesitant to do this. So I think that's playing into it. So this is just my opinion. A lot of men feel economically insufficient. They place a high degree of importance on their ability to provide. If a man doesn't feel that he has the ability to be a family's provider, he's less likely to commit. So I think that's answering, at least from my perspective, the title question. And y'all can give y'all opinion on it in a second here. I don't think I got too much more. I think I got one more video, maybe a slide or two. But that's my opinion here as to why men aren't committing.
So the most important decision you'll make is who you're fortunate or not fortunate enough to.
Oh crap! Let me go back. Sorry. Oh, went too far back. So that video that I'm about to play here, he's talking about online dating and how that contributes, because we are in modern times after all. And I think it's worth consideration. Please listen to what he's saying there, because he makes some really, really good points. And I want y'all to tell me what y'all think.
So the most important decision you'll make is who you're fortunate or not fortunate enough to partner with. And I see a lot of young men are not creating those types of opportunities to meet people and eventually find good friends, find good mentors, and most importantly, find a good mate. And so, unfortunately, marriage and relationships are becoming another luxury item. Marriage and pairing off with a mate is plummeting among people. It's correlated to your wealth, because middle income and poor people, especially men, are no longer, because of online dating, are no longer seen as viable mates. And they also don't have as many opportunities to meet people in person, where there's things like smell and vibe and humor that are some of the magic and mystery of why we're attracted to each other. But what I tell them is create as many opportunities as possible to establish relationships. Search. So technology has come into mating with dating apps. And it's created a winner-take-all or winner-take-most dynamic, which is somewhat unhealthy. And it plays out like something like this. Women are interested in men based on 3 criteria. The first is their ability to signal resources. The second is intelligence. And the third is kindness. It doesn't matter how rich or how smart you are. If you're an asshole or you're not kind, people eventually don't want you as a mate. And when everyone has access to everyone, women who have a much finer filter for mating, because the downside of sex is so much greater for them if they get pregnant, so they have a much finer filter. They end up all being drawn or expressing interest to a much smaller group of individuals. So what the dynamic is, you have 50 men on Tinder, 50 women on Tinder. 46 of the women will express all of their interest to just 4 men, which leaves 46 men vying for the attention of just 4 women. So if you apply the Gini coefficient to online dating, it's got the same Gini coefficient as income inequality in Venezuela. So mating inequality is greater than income inequality in Venezuela. And what it leads to is what I call Porsche polygamy. And that is the men who are the top 10% in terms of attractiveness online get 90% of the interest. So that does not lead to good behavior or establishing long-term relationships. Kind of 50 to 90 percentile do okay, but the bottom half of attractiveness of men based on online attractiveness are totally shut out of the market. And as a result, in America, 1 in 3 males under the age of 30 has not had sex in the last 12 months. And I find people hear the term sex and their mind goes different places. I think of it as the key step to an elemental foundation of any society, and that is relationship. So in the US, what's happened with online dating is it's amazing for the top 10% of attractiveness of men. It's okay for the top half. It is a disaster for the bottom half. And when I say so, we are producing an enormous cohort of economically and emotionally non-viable men.
So he's saying we're producing a large group of men who aren't economically viable to, not economically attractive to a lot of women. All right.
And I think
there's a reason I'm sharing this video, because I'll try to give solutions. So I think that this can kind of start walking us towards some solutions. So he's saying that there's a large segment of men who aren't economically viable. Okay.
It's bad for society. I think it creates an existential risk for us. I think women As a result, don't have as many, find there just aren't as many economically or emotionally valuable men as they would like. Women are graduating at double the rates of college as men now. For every one male graduate in the next 5 years of college, there's going to be 2 women. And you think, well, okay, it's time women leveled up. They're finally getting their due. Okay. But just realize this has huge societal impacts, because women made socioeconomically horizontally and up, men horizontally and down. In
Hypergamy.
some,
Women date up, men date down. So if everybody's doing that, there's going to be a shortage at the top, especially when there's already a shortage as is.
women with college degrees typically aren't interested in men without college degrees. So we're seeing less household formation, lower birth rates, and these things usually stunt an economy.
Okay, so lack of relationships, lack of marriages, as I explained in the slide way earlier, he said it stunts an economy. We can just dissect that out, and it stunts a community. So the fact that as a community we're not having a lot of relationships is stunting us. But this is my last slide here. So solutions, and there's a reason I shared that video, because he said a lot of key things I think can kind of give us some stuff to think about. Matthew said by design. Yes, I think a lot of these problems are definitely by design. Let me let this brother in here. All right, so some possible solutions. I'm going to break it down. So I got some solutions for men, I got some solutions for women, and I got some solutions for both parties. And this solutions it's basically following the data, best practices, looking at what's out here, what's happening out here, and just making a common sense determination about what we all should do if we're in a particular situation. And this conversation, particularly for women who may feel like it's they're finding that men are intimidated by them. So I got some solutions here, and let me just say here. So first thing is prioritize relationships. This is what men and women need to do. And I have in parentheses positioning, opportunity, and intentionality, or being intentional. You're not going to get a relationship if you're not being intentional. You're not going to get a relationship if you're not in a position where you can meet eligible singles who meet your criteria. So, you say if you're and we have a lot of high income earning women. I know we had doctors in here, psychiatrists in here, whatever you name it. Lawyers have tapped into our conversation. We have a lot of successful women, but are you in a position where you're meeting men who meet your criteria? That's something to consider. And you just have to take opportunities. As men, we have to take opportunities. What are you doing here? And I got a little side note here. Definitely online dating. I put this for women here because, as we saw from that previous slide, there are a ton of men online who could be economically viable, but women are passing over these men because they're looking at the top % of men. And I agree with Anna. He said that's an exaggerated statistic. I think it was slightly exaggerated, but I think there was a lot of truth in that. And there is data that looks at stuff like that. And I shared data before. When you look at Tinder swipes, you look at the amount of swipes women do versus the amount of swipes men do, and we can see that women are far and away a lot more picky. So, and I want to say that men and women, we don't take pictures the same when you're approaching online dating. I think people should try online dating for real. Men and women, we don't take pictures the same. I can't take a good picture to save my life. You know what I mean? A lot of brothers struggle with that, but it seems it's rare I run across women who don't take good pictures. You know what I mean? So just take that in mind when you're on online dating, is to make some considerations, make some concessions initially, and just see what's out there, because you could be bypassing a huge pool of men, because the data shows that a lot of men are being looked over when it comes to online dating. So definitely try online dating for the women, but just approach it differently. And for both people, we need to prioritize relationships. Men, we need to increase our productivity, because it's, in all other communities, there's a larger gap in terms of income, and women on large, they want to date a man who makes more than them. And women, as he said in the last presentation, they're earning college degrees. And so they're earning more income, especially as they age. So a lot of women are on the ball, and it's shrinking the pool of eligible men. Now, if you're a brother, you're already on it, you're on your grind, you're on your purpose, cool. But if you're not a man like that, you are what's partly contributing to the problem, is that for a lot of women, they want a man who just makes more, who's provided. And for men, that's important to us. We admit as much. So we need to increase our productivity. How do you do that? And I'm gonna just say work 60 hours a week. If you're in a position, you're working 40 hours a week, and that's only netting you 30,000, 40, 50, whatever, get you a part-time job. And the OG who brothers love, He said it best here. This is the OG speaking. Let's see what he got to say.
I want to hear shit from you talking about you being broke. If you're not working in 60 hours minimum a week that you're getting paid for, turn off YouTube, Instagram, whatever, and get your ass out there. Go down there and work at McDonald's, Circle K, get you a job. I don't care about your pride. You can't be proud and broke at the same time. Go work, and work, and then you take that money you make from your part-time job, invest some of it, invest most and take half of it, invest it to your future. The other 50%, the other percentage, take some, have some fun, go buy your belt, then invest it in self-improvement.
There you go. Man, if you ain't in a position where you have financially, you got to get on it, man. You got to get on it. And let's just take women out the equation. Just do it for your own sake. All right. Women, reimagine what a successful Black man is. Okay. Rethink it. And in what ways should a woman rethink what a successful Black man is? We talk about blue collar versus white collar. When we look here at the data, more women are entering into white collar professions, whereas more men enter blue collar professions. But that isn't to say that a brother who's in blue collar is not making money. But don't write a man off just because, he's not in a white collar sort of job. A man, he could be a plumber, but some people don't know plumbers make bank, especially if you own a business yourself, especially if you have employees, especially if you have a clientele. It depends on it. Shauna said duh, but a lot of people, a lot of women write men off because on the basis of his occupation, they don't think that occupation makes a lot of money, so it trips them up. Let's see here. Second thing, education. Don't write a man off just because he doesn't have education necessarily, because while it's a predictor for income, it may not be telling the whole story. And as you can see, women today are outpacing men in terms of educational attainment. This is across all genders, but that's not the only predictor. So just rethink what a successful Black man is. When you look at just debt, and I just brought here, this is debt. This is to the left is for just single people. And as you can see, that even though Black men aren't earning degrees to the same prevalence that Black women are, and even though that we're not entering white collar professions to the same prevalence that Black women are, we still have on average, we have a higher net worth. So there's a consideration there that we're not thinking about. So the guy's not going to school. Conversely, he's not taking on student loan debt. Conversely, he's not having a bill that he's paying every month, and he has more disposable income. So he could be, you could be making more than him, but because he doesn't have your same expenses, he's able to save more money, sock away more money. So it feels about the same. So I just say that to say, don't write a brother off just because he doesn't have XYZ. Reimagine what a successful Black man is and what a successful Black man looks like. Because I can't tell women to date down. I'm not going to do that anymore. And then just a caveat note, if you do that, speak life into a brother, help him out, bring him up. I know a lot of women say they're not into building a Build-A-Bear, but at some point we need to think about the condition that we're in, where we're at in terms of community at large. You know what I mean? We're not being taught these things, so we got to have more grace with one another. Let's see here. Let's see here. This is a really linear way of looking at a relationship. In my opinion, money doesn't equal love, and lots of money for a lot of people, it's a very important factor, Mandisa. Hater, not when we just look at the data. I just poured out all that. Even though it's linear, the data just shows that the data just bears out that what things are economically. Prioritize health and fitness. I think that if you're, you can punch it up a notch, men and women. If you're a brother, you're having a hard time finding a woman, you might need to lose a few pounds. You might need to work on your grooming. You might need to do something to attract more mates. Same thing with women. You're a woman. The sort of men who are at top, who are economically successful, you're economically successful women. The sort of men who are economically successful, they don't want women who look, they want women who are more top notch. They want a woman that they earned. You know what I mean? Let's see here. So some men increase efficiency. So education, brothers, get you an education. As you can see here, when we look at the data in terms of career. So when men do go to college, we're entering, the good thing is that men are more likely to take on, go to school for things that net high income earning degrees. The thing is, we just need more brothers to do that. And I think if more brothers were to do that, that would begin to turn the tide a little bit. Let's see here. High income earning trades. We talked about that before. And another solution for women is to date older men. That's a solution. A lot of women may not like it, but statistically, to find a man who's not going to be intimidated by you because he's not economically in a certain position, because he's economically more successful, he's going to be less intimidated. You could date older men. That's a solution right there too. So that's all I got, y'all. But I want to hear y'all's opinion on it. And if you want to react, let me stop the share. Let me stop the share and bring up the gallery. If you want to weigh in on it, there's a reaction button at the bottom of Zoom. Do you think, so I guess I can open it up and kind of give y'all some questions to kind of contemplate here. But do you think, has it been your experience that men are intimidated by your success? If you are a successful woman, what, anything you want to say about that? Is it a misnomer, or are women cap, fellas? Are the women cap when they say that men are intimidated by them? What y'all think? We also briefly in the beginning talked about the passport bros. What do y'all think about that? Do you go where you're celebrated, go to find love? So we got a lot of stuff out there. And let me I got one more poll for y'all. I forgot to launch it during the presentation, but let me go ahead and just to kind of maybe hopefully break the ice a little bit more, maybe get y'all to weigh in on something. And this is for the women only. I just launched it, and we're going to go to folks on camera first after this. And I see Dane got his hand in queue, so we're going to go to Dane, and then we'll circle back for anybody else who can get on camera, or we just circle back. We got Jackie. He's put his camera on Educate. So so this is the quiz here, income quiz. How important is a man income? This is for women only. And then what's your standard when it comes to man income? Let me see where y'all are at with this. I know one sister said it's pretty linear, but let's see what the opinions are in the group is if about income, when it does it matter, or is it significant? Let's see what folks think. Ooh, Shani says she done made 5x more than some. Not trying to brag, just highlighting the data market for upper class, middle class women. Look at that. That's interesting. I'll let this poll go for a few more seconds, and then I'll share it with y'all. Oh no, I didn't say you, Shay. It was Shani. Let the poll go for a second more too, and just to see, are we making much ado about nothing with this whole intimidation conversation? Is it something that sisters are dealing with? Let me go ahead and end the poll and share it here. We got majority of folks responded. Share results. Awan said her poll wouldn't go through, so I guess some folks, but I think we got a good number of responses here. So I think to give us a general vibe. So how important is a man's income? As y'all can see, moderately important, very important. 25% of ladies say it's very important. Only one lady said it's not that important also, even though that maybe that was Mandisa who said it's not important. But let's see here. What's your standard when it comes to man income? Let's see here. He just has to make more than me was 28%. Let's see. He has to make significantly more than me. One lady had thought that. And let's see, 10% or 31% of ladies said he can make a little less than me, but not by much. So that, let's see, and the majority was, it doesn't matter. Okay, so the majority, 30%, doesn't matter what he makes as long as he's able to support himself. Interesting. So, okay, that's interesting. Anna said they're lying. She thinks some of y'all was capping with that. I think so too. All right. Educate, what you got for us?
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, Cap, as far as the intimidation thing, right? When you look at it, first we gotta look at all the entire topic around relationships and media. Who tells that story for the most part? Women, right? Then when you observe, when you observe women in their social circles and all that, never have I heard women just go up to each other and be like, sis, you think maybe he just wasn't into you? You think maybe something might have happened between y'all, that maybe he was interested and that just didn't work? No, women lie to each other all the time. They lie to each other, they spare their feelings, so they come up with these excuses that don't even make sense when you just sit and think about it. He's just intimidated by everything you have to offer. What does that mean? He's intimidated by your success. He's scared of all this and that, just to skate over the reality, which is he was just not into you. So what I'm saying is the whole men are intimidated by women who make more. I think that was just a coping, not coping, but just a soothing excuse to spare their feelings, because really what it is, it's not that it's the intimidation of that they make more, it's that attitude that comes with it, oftentimes than not. You know, most of the time, and you can tell by some of the comments in here, right? A lot of women don't quite respect a man as much. And I know this isn't every woman, because I've dealt with women who aren't like this, but I'm just saying the common consensus is they think less of a man who doesn't make the level that they want them to make. And they show a lot more respect in cooperation with the one who is footing most of the, not all the bills, you know? So that's what it is. It's not that how much she's making, it's the attitude that comes from that success, you know? But well, yeah, what do y'all think? I'm gonna just drop.
Okay, yeah. So okay,
Yeah,
let me rewind it back. So I think you came in a little late, so you missed much of the data I think that was presented, but
yeah.
I wanted to present to you. Now you said that it's you basically, to sum it up, you basically said there was a lot of cap. It's a lot of cap when women say that they're really masking other issues and other factors as to why they're struggling in the dating market. But what do you think about when you look at the data, and when women make more, they're at an increased risk for domestic violence. They're more likely to get cheated on by significant amount, and they're 50% higher chance of getting divorced when a woman makes more. Are you saying that the main contributing factor for that is because women just look down on a man because she makes more, or do you think there could be an inkling of truth as to men being insecure or intimidated by their woman's success?
Like I said, I didn't see that. I didn't see those stats. I didn't see that data. I don't know where it came from. So, but just with that context that you provided, the connection I make from that is my argument. I'm not justifying a man putting their hands on a woman or acting, you know, I'm not justifying any of that. But it definitely makes sense to me where, let's say a woman is constantly emasculating him, say, you know what, I paid for all this shit. Yo, you're not gonna tell me what to do. You're not gonna, basically say he doesn't have a say. You know, emasculating. I can see why. I'm not saying I understand and I justify that, but I'm saying I can see the connection between a man snapping and whooping his woman's ass who's making more than him, because she's constantly disrespecting him and emasculating him every day. I can see how the data how my anecdotal opinion could support that evidence. But again, don't take that as me saying I'm with that. That makes sense.
Interesting. So
I do see I see the correlation. I mean, that's wild, but
yeah. And the data, I know you said you didn't see the data, but it came primarily from the American Sociological Association, whatever, make of that what you will, but they look at all those different factors and dynamics, and they gather data. I don't know how they gather all their data, but that's just what they say. So you're standing on your square and you're saying that it's not men being intimidated, it's more so women just not knowing how to.
Well, think about it. You come home from your blue collar job every night, you know, sweaty, dirty. You know, you might be able to get cover a birthday, you know, every now and then for the kids or whatever. But she's talking about, and I'm stealing this name right here, but Kevin from Sales, right? Yeah. And she's bragging about this dude who just just took his family out to, outside the country, who just did it up like this.
Now, would that make a man insecure if she's doing that?
That would make a man insecure, but that's the purpose of it, though. Her purpose is to emasculate him. She is attacking him. Okay, so she's getting a reaction. I'm not justifying the shit. I'm just saying what it is. So I totally get, based on what, the evidence, the data you provided, I could see a connection. But hey,
so there we go.
I'm open to other perspectives.
Oh yeah, that was a good one, because I like disagreement, because he's taking a whole different take on it. So he doesn't really sound like he doesn't really contradict the data. He's just saying that the way we got there is really, basically, if I can just simplify a more complex argument, is woman's fault. That it's the woman. Yeah, basically you're saying that a woman's emasculating the blue collar brother, and that in turn is making him insecure, and that in turn is leading to dysfunction. I think that's what you said. You don't think that's possible?
What I'm saying is, let me just clarify. What I'm saying is, if that man is coming home doing what he's supposed to do, he may not be making the most money. And the woman who feels a way about choosing a man who's not of a certain status, you know, providing her the lifestyle that she wants. So in a passive aggressive and oftentimes aggressive manner, throws that in his face to use.
Okay, so here what you say. So
attack
that's you
attack
saying
him.
it's the woman's fault.
I ain't say that.
That's what you said. If you said she's passive
what I'm
aggressive,
saying is, in that scenario, his reaction, it was a reaction. It was a reaction to her attack.
Are there any other scenarios that this thing could play out? Any other ways it plays out other than
I like
a
what
woman?
you're doing though. I see what you're doing. But nah, that's
I mean, I'm balanced, man.
yeah, but no, man, I'm not trying to say whose fault it is or who's not, but I'm just saying, okay, we know that a man is bigger than a woman. We know, so she's not gonna just try to fight a man physically. So what they do is they weaponize their words. They attack his pride. They attack his ego. A woman that's constantly doing that, certain men will only take so much. Not saying it's right. I'm just saying what happens.
All right.
I see you, Jenny.
I think he's making good points. We need to cut the brother's mic off. We need to hear that was an opinion. So that's his thoughts as to why it stuff is playing out the way it is. I just think that I simplified his argument, but I just think that it does sound like it's coming back to it's on the ladies there. But all right, we're gonna go to Dane. What's up, man?
How you doing? So my take may not be as controversial as some may have expected.
Where are ladies at? Ladies, we want to hear from y'all. It's like this was this fellas night. We want to hear from y'all. I want to hear y'all's experience. Go and pull up, y'all. Hit that reaction button. We want to hear what y'all got to say. Go ahead, Dane.
I don't know. So my thing is, at this stage of my life, one thing I've done in the past few years is definitely put a heavy focus on self-development, even when it comes to relationships and looking back and seeing results I've gotten in the past on what I've done. And so one thing I would say, and I come from it from what a man can do, and especially a black man in the current situation, you talk about the current dating pool and the issues that black men are having with our women and things like that. One thing I'll say is, it's fun to watch these online battles and things like that, but
Right.
I try to remind men to come back to real life and focus on real life. And so a lot of things you can do, figure out what your goal is, work on your career, your business, your health, your wealth, become disciplined in a lot of things, and that leave that as a base. Because I'll tell you like this, I've dated women that make more than me. I've dated women that made less than me. And the times that I've had the best results is when I've been the most confident. When I've been the most confident is either when I've been working on something where I felt like I was going to have a future, or I've had something decent going at that time. Also, my best relationship is when I really made it a point to set boundaries and had a clear goal. And so when I started dealing with women, it was more about, can they plug into my goals? How do they fit my long-term goals? And do her goals complement my goals and things like that? So just that heavy focus on your circle, because you, as a man, you can control your circle. You talk about these big goals, save the black community and things like that. I say that the black community is saved by a bunch of personal social circles. If every man got concerned about his circle, who he lets around him, what he lets around him, what he's building, the income he's bringing, and the success he's developing, and you control that. And if every black man controlled that, then the conditions around you improve anyway. And then working with other black men on that same mindset, and then choosing a woman that complements that fits you. Once you know what that looks like for you.
So you talking some real grown man stuff, and I agree completely. And I like what you said there. A lot of times, these online discussions and whatnot, they're fun and all, but at the end of the day, men, we need to come back and be men at the end of the day. Like, what do you got going on? And I agree completely with everything you're saying, man. That's real grown man stuff. And part of me wants to figure out a way to speak more to men and find a way that we can level up as men and not get caught up in a lot of these back and forths that aren't really moving us forward as individuals. And I think it's no coincidence that Kevin Samuels, when rest in peace, when he was here, he did a men's week, and he only had that 1 week because the brothers that was showing up to the men's week, they weren't really on their grind, they weren't on their purpose, they was lacking in a lot of areas. And it was and Kevin Samuels being concerned with the black male image said, this is embarrassing. I can't do this no more. I'm gonna protect the image of brothers. So a lot of brothers are sitting back, not doing what they're supposed to do, but we're sitting back and we're looking at a lot of these back and forth, and we're pointing the finger at women when we don't have our stuff together. So I think you made some good points there. We got to figure out a way. And so I do agree with what you said. We can try to do all this talk about changing the community, but at the end of the day, we're all individuals, and we got to change ourselves first. And I agree completely. But I'm gonna go to T, because we've heard from the fellas, and we want to hear from a lady, and we'll let T weigh in on it. What you got for us?
So what I have on it is that we talk about that, you know, some of the guys are basically saying, well, I don't care how much she makes, this and that. But in all honesty, most men do. A lot of times they have a problem with how much a female makes, and I think it's more so of a mindset when it comes down to I'm sorry, somebody's calling me. So it comes down to, you know, a mindset. So where that mindset comes in at, oh, she's automatically masculine just because she's making more than me, because I'm supposed to be the provider if I'm the man. So I think that it's just more so of a thought process. And I think that thought process is what actually gets more in the way of everything. You know, sometimes female can actually be the one that actually is living that soft life with the guy, you know, or with her, you know, her male friend or her male guy or whatever. But I think it's just more so when guys say that they're not necessarily intimidated, but in all actuality, it is an intimidation, especially when you already coming in feeling like, I'm supposed to be the one doing this. She's not supposed to be the one doing this. So now I feel some type of way.
See, Kevin, yeah,
I'm sorry.
I think Kevin was responding to you. He said, we don't care how much she makes. And I truly think for a brother who's on his grind and on his purpose, and he's accomplishing his goals and knocking out what he's doing, I think it's true that he doesn't care. But I think for a brother who's having his own insecurities, he's not where he wants to be at. I definitely think that brother is looking at a woman who makes more, and that's a consideration in his mind, that he does care how much she makes, because he's comparing it to himself, because he places a lot of, as T said, a lot of importance on his ability to provide. And I think that's only natural. If a man's not where he wants to be, he is going to look at his lady that he's with, and he's going to make a comparison. But I do think what Kevin said, for brothers who got it together, who are within their own rights doing stuff, yeah, I don't think we really care, to be honest with you. I think I never really cared, but for a good while, ever since I've been in my 30s, upper 20s to mid 30s, I just, it's never been a real factor for me. And I don't really consider it that much. But I did have that one experience with my ex when she got a promotion and she flipped the script on me quick. So it happens. But yeah, but T, did you have anything else? I think that was good commentary. And I think it's true. As a guy, I gotta agree with what you're saying. I do think there's another side to it. I do think that women feel away when a man's not making, when she feels like she's pulling more of the weight financially. I think that happens too. But I do also think it's on men too. But do you have anything else you want to say?
No, that's actually it.
Yeah, and I ain't seen you in a minute. It's been a long, long time. I think you was tapping in earlier, way earlier.
I'm actually back now, so you guys see me a lot more now.
Okay, that's what's up. Well, welcome back, and thank you for your commentary. I think it was good and insightful. We can go back to Brother Steven. Sound like he want to weigh in on there. What you got for us, Steven?
All right, so I got female friends who are lawyers, and they're all single, having a hard time finding somebody. And the biggest advice I always tell them is that, you got to accept the person for who they are, not the bank account. A lot of times women accept men temporarily. And a lot of times we as men, we accept women temporarily. We accept people based off where they are and how they benefit us. And then when the dynamic change, we get mad about it. In this situation right now, we're speaking of, as far as, are men intimidated? There are some men who are, and they're intimidated because of the perception that they think that will come with the woman, as opposed to the reality of who she actually is.
Right.
If she makes more, she's going to treat me this way. I become less of a man. I become less of, what I'm supposed to be. I remember when I first started dating my wife, she was making $30,000 more than me. And I had to get myself together
Yeah.
But she was keep telling me like, yo, no, you don't need to worry about money. You know, money's not important. But for me, it was, because there's a dynamic, I understand, with the relationship. If one person has all the power, then one person has all the control.
Right.
So a lot of times for us men, we don't want to give up power. We don't want to give up control. Women want control. And so therefore the dynamic changes. I mean, I to your sorry, I read the comment. But no, I mean, the truth of the matter is just that person makes you happy, that person brings you some type of pleasure. Can you be okay with that? Then not make you more and not make them feel lesser than for it. Because oftentimes, like the fellow said earlier, women are good with the words to cut a man down to his bones.
Yep.
Like, you guys bring us to our knees and don't even realize it and never apologize for it. So, I mean, I think that's a truth we're saying here, but there's not a lot of truth that's being said on the women's side, of where it's like, yeah, money matters, and if he doesn't have it, I treat him differently. That's the truth. I think a lot of men are really willing to hear. If a man can hear that, I think we would act and treat you differently. But that's what I got for you, brother. That's all I got for now.
Sorry, y'all had to step away. There's apparently something that happened in my neighborhood, and the police was knocking on the door. Said, "Did I hear anything?" I was like, "What the world? I hear nothing." So I don't know what's going on here. But thanks, Stephen. Sorry I couldn't usher you out of that. But I think you made some good points, and I like hearing from folks who are actually married and who are walking the walk and actually doing it, and to kind of get their perspectives. And it sounds like he's saying sometimes men could be intimidated, sometimes not, but there's different dynamics there. You made a lot of good points, Stephen. Thank you for tapping in with us, man. I'm gonna go to Tawana because we just heard from a guy. I'm going to Tawana, then Jermaine, and then because we want to hear from ladies trying to mix it up, get a good balance there. What's up, Tawana?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
So it was a great presentation. I think I would say that I agree with Dane. I appreciated his honesty when he said that a lot of times he felt more confident in relationships when he made more money. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. I know that there's you put a lot of statistics out there, and that was really good. The data was awesome. If Black women are graduating at a higher rate than Black men, then we already know as Black women that there's more of a likelihood that we're going to have to date down, as you indicated. And I'm going to use that terminology because that's what that's the terminology you used, that we're going to have to date down to some extent or date a man that's making less money. I don't think that most of us here as women necessarily care about the fact that the man makes less. It's about the person's character. As the one guy, I forgot who it was you had on there, but he was a Caucasian man. And he mentioned, if you're an a-hole, nobody cares how much money you make. Like, that's not important to women. Right. But I do believe that it's much better for a man to make more money. Now, I didn't put that on mine. What I would put is that I already know that I'm probably going to have to date a guy that makes less money. If he doesn't, wonderful. But I think things are smoother. The relationship is more smoother. I want him to feel confident. I want him to feel like we're building together. And so I really agree with your presentation as it relates to that, because I do believe that there are some men who are intimidated, and they will tell you that. I've had men tell me that. And so I just believe that it's about the person, bottom line. And it's about what you want to build. And I believe that it's also going to take a mindset change in the men to realize that just because a woman makes more money doesn't mean that she's trying to be dominant. She's not trying to be the boss. She's not trying to be the leader. She's trying to build and have a foundation. But is she going to have an opinion? Yes. Is she going to speak her mind? Yes. Is she going to be a pushover? No. And I'll say this, and this is the last part I want to say. I also found it fascinating from your statistics that the women who do date down, if they're looking at the man's character and trying to look beyond the financial gain that the man is making, they're looking beyond that, and then they're going to get a man that makes less money, but then they're going to get cheated on for a reward. I thought that was right. Really insane, that you would actually, try to be considerate of a man and basically support him and not care about his financial situation, and then as a reward to me in terms of being loyal, and you're going to get rewarded as a woman and get cheated on. I found that to be very fascinating, and I do believe it's true, because I do believe that the man doesn't feel confident. So bottom line, I do think that finances are important in a relationship, but it is what it is, and that's where we are. I don't know if that's going to change, other than, like you said, a mindset change with the men stepping up to match where the women are, and that's it.
Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head in talking about the dynamic and the reality of life is that a lot of women who are economically self-sufficient and they're high income earners, the truth matter, when we look at real life and what's going to happen is, in order that, so that they don't, to use the term, die alone, is that they're going to have to, a lot of women are going to have to consider dating men who are a tax bracket or less than them. And when that happens, you said some commentary which is true for the men, but I think also women feel a way about it too when they're making more than the men. We can just say that a woman will accept a man, but if we're honest with ourselves, I think women, you may start looking at a guy a little different, because it's not just men who have the expectation that they'll be a provider. It's women too. They have the expectation that men will be a provider. And we, a lot of women can say, I'm okay doing this, doing X, Y, and Z. But when we get to the nitty gritty and the day to day, when you want to go on a vacation and, and the guy just doesn't have it at that moment, you're having to finance the vacation. And then one vacation turns to two and two turns to three, or whatever it may be. And then a man is also has the same expectation for you, that you're still going to be a wife in a traditional sense, in that you're going to cook, you're going to clean, you're going to do X, Y, Z. You're going to feel away. A lot of ladies are going to feel away. If we being real, you're going to feel away when you're making twice as much as a man, and he still wants you to be a wife in a traditional sense. He still wants to be catered to, but you're bringing home the bacon and he's not. You're going to feel away about that. And the man's going to feel away about that, and you're going to feel away about that too, if we're honest. So I think that this is why I just can't wholesalely just get out there and say, hey, just go date down, and it is what it is. But I think if you do date down, I think you did give some insights there where, yeah, there is a high prevalence that, some stuff's going to happen there in a negative sense. But if you do it, focus on the character, focus on the guy's character, because that's daggone, what you got going on, HM? All right, let me okay, so that let me go to Jermaine, and then Ken. What's up, Jermaine?
What's up? Hey, I'm sorry. What? I don't even know your name, and I'm here.
I'm Cardo.
Cardo. Hey, what's up, man?
What's up?
I'm about to say, man, my whole take on it is just mindset. I came to the realization, that women just naturally are going to expect, more men the more that they make. I don't necessarily think it's right, but I don't necessarily think it's wrong. I understand why. Of course, you want someone to be able to provide. I think the biggest thing, more so for us as men, is just men and women, is that I think women should more so date for like mindset. Because one of the things I realized, and this is something, I'm a 27-year-old man, and my father's still kicking game to me. Mm-hmm. And so my father, just not really put his business out there, but he was a felon. He came out of prison. For most men, they will feel deterred by that. But his mindset was like, I'm okay. And he did what he had to do. His mindset was a millionaire.
Right.
And so he went out, built connections, started a business. He didn't have it. He had networks, and he started a business with friends and stuff like that. And so and he just naturally attracts these powerful women. Like, I'm like, these are women that I admire. They're like lawyers, business owners, and stuff like that. I'm like, damn, man. I'm like, not once again, not to put his business out there, but you sleeping on the couch, and like these women want you to come over to their house. They want you to give you all of this, and he's like, man, it's just the mindset, and they know that I'm not worried about how much I make, because I'm already a millionaire. I'm gonna make this money. I'm gonna do this. So
I think you make a good point, because everybody has a starting point, you know what I mean? And we had a brother who used to come to these conversations a lot, and one of the things that he said that really resonated with me was that and I think this holds true for younger women, or younger women should consider this more so than older women, but a lot of women, and he said a lot of women want to meet a man at the finish line versus at the start of the race. You know, we didn't come out of, a man didn't just show up on the world making a high income earner. Man didn't just show up making a high income. He started from somewhere. So you talked about focusing on a mindset. I do think there's something to be said about that, where you could be a high income earner woman, but if you can find a man with a right mindset, who's a good man, he's not going to stay where he's at. And you know, a lot we don't often talk about the value that a woman can bring to a good man in terms of inspiration, speaking life into him, bringing him to a certain level. Now, I want to say that's true for younger. I think that's something younger women should consider more so the older women, because for guys in his 50s still trying to scrape it together, you know, barring no external circumstances like prison or something like that, it's a little different story for brothers 50 still struggling to get his stuff together. But if you're a woman in your 20s and you're dating a guy who's 4 or 5 years older, a guy who's in his mid 20s, 28, he's not going to be making a lot of money, you know, where he's at right there. But look at his mindset. What kind of man is that? So it's just worth consideration. But go ahead, Jermaine. I cut you off. I just wanted to get that point in.
Oh, no, man. I'm just listening. But yeah, you know, I think someone in here said mindset's not the only thing. Of course, mindset's not the only thing. You got to put action to the pedal. But I'm of the, I guess, the mindset that, you know, how you think is how you gonna act. You know, and so yeah, that was more so pretty much where I was at. And because I had one more thing. It was on my mind.
You can raise your hand again, brother. But thanks. I think it was good commentary, man. I think you talk about the mindset. I think that's important too. All right, Ken, what you got for us?
All right. Bro, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. We literally can Google your state and see the median income. So all this money talk is cap. My brother, I'm in Massachusetts. We're the 4th richest state, and the median income is $1,000. So what does that tell you? The vast majority of people are dating in their economic lane.
Right.
What I comes out. It's your average looking brother who are past that median income.
Hey, your volume's a little low, Ken. It's just a little low. Might be your headphone. Yeah, see if you can come off your head.
The speakerphone. You hear me better now?
Yeah, a little better. Go ahead.
So what it is you got these guys who make past the median income. There are 5 in looks. We want to date these 8 looking women. That's why you got to talk about money. Because if you were to date in your lane, you wouldn't be having this issue. Women, and first of all, we all know we're not a monolithic group, but the vast majority of women who are equally yoked when it comes to looks, they're not having money conversations. All my women cousins who have date guys who look like them or a little bit higher, do not talk about money. The only guys who constantly talk about this money stuff are guys who are dating out of your lane. And for women who keep saying men are intimidated by your degrees, most times they're not attracted to you. That intimidation stuff is capped. Now, they might be intimidated with women who look like Halle Berry, who are super lawyers, but the vast majority of these women talk about their degrees and intimidate men. I guarantee you, if you show me their picture, I can tell you it's more so, they're just not aesthetically appeal to you. And that's cool. There's 3 billion people of African DNA on planet. Someone's going to like you. But if you want to keep chasing markets that are not working for you, you're delusional. I don't care how many degrees you have or how much money you make, you're always going to have issues. That's why I like to travel. Because outside this country, and I keep saying this, people date in their lane. And I think that's why they have happier relationships. You got basically people who are going like crash course dummies. You're running into the wall and you're not getting the results you want and you keep complaining. Like, that's stupid, doing the same thing over and over and getting the same results.
Yeah, so you bringing us back home and bringing us to the reality of things like you always do. Ken, I appreciate you. I think you made some good points. I do think it's true that most people, when we really look at it, we bear out the data, most people are dating within their economic bracket. And that seems to be the happy medium for a lot of people in this modern age. As we looked at that data point talking about infidelity, when people are around the same measure, that's where folks seem to be happy. And everyday people are making it work. And a lot of times we talk about these conversations, we're talking about extremes. And as I showed the data earlier, only 10% of women, according to the data, only 10% of women are making 60K, not 10% of women, Black women make 60K or more. And I think that those numbers, they're going to skew up in metropolitan areas. So we're going to get a lot more economically successful women here in Metro Atlanta and other metro areas. But for the most part, yeah, Ken said it's not a lot. But when you think about just across the nation, it is a lot when you bear out everybody, when taking the whole population. But thanks, Ken. We're going to go to Kim, because I can see Kim's on the camera, and we can come back to the other folks. But Kim, what you got for us?
Well, a couple of things. One is, ever since I was in college, I would have the same conversation with my girlfriends about, well, what kind of men are we going to marry? Because we saw who was on the campus, and it was going to be either, the guy that nobody wanted to talk to because he was boring, or it was going to be the guy who wasn't going to make as much money. So you got not exciting, doesn't make a lot of money. And then the other was that there would be a person who just wasn't that ambitious. So it's not like they were never going to get there. So it's not just temporary. Then there was this other thing that, so I don't know that it's people not dating in their lane as much as it is, you don't know what lane you're in. Like, I mean, I don't know when someone said, I can't remember if it was Ken, but
yeah, that was
I'm not
Ken who
sure.
said it.
Yeah, I don't know what the lane is. I just know that there are some people that I'm attracted to because intellectually attractive. I can talk to you, or we could have this great conversation all day long. I can't spend all your money, and I can't sit and look at you, but we could talk all day long. So I feel like the physical attraction is probably more important to me almost than the money. I mean, the money, I could figure that out, but I can't figure out. I don't want to talk to myself, but I could probably feed myself and do a lot of other things. So that's one thought. The other thought is that I also think that there's a lot of insecurity among Black men, and I don't think that that's Black women doing that. I think they just do it to themselves. I mean, they just play themselves all day long. Like, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, whatever. And I think that some of that may be, to Ken's point, you're trying to do some things you shouldn't be even trying to do. So there's, kind of the opportunity to, there's going to be somebody who makes more money than you who's going to like you, but that's not going to be everyone. But it's not necessarily because they make more money. It could be something completely different. You can't carry a conversation. You're not civil. You don't have manners, things like that. So I think we have to separate what's making and I say our Black men feel so insecure, not just with us, but all the time, or many of the times. And so I think that's I've heard that a little bit in these conversations, and that's my problem with whatever that dude's name, who I choose not to remember, who, I felt like he had a lot of insecurities, and he was throwing that on every Black male out there. Like, women don't, and they're always, and I'm like, men don't, and they're always. There's no always and never with the way people act. So that was the other thing. And then the third thing is that I think there's this conversation is so good because there's so many different ways to look at this and slice it and bring sort of a lot of perspectives in there. I heard a lot of things that I was like taking a note and say, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way. And so, just from the chats we had earlier in the week or whenever that was, when we were all on GroupMe, and then some things today. So I appreciate you bringing us together. I know it's a bit of work, and I appreciate all of your preparation with audio and slideshows and everything like that, but I especially appreciate your bringing all the people and voices in, because I think that's really important.
Oh, thank you, Kim.
I've got.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for those kind words. But let me ask you this now. You had said something. If I could just ask you a follow up, because you had said you had spoke about how you do believe that a lot of men are intimidated, and I do agree with you. But do you also agree that on the flip side that there are women who may feel away when they date men who aren't economically in a certain position?
Actually, I didn't say the word intimidated. I said insecure, and I don't know if that's intimidated would be. To me, intimidated is passively, you're there and someone intimidates you. I don't feel like you could sit in a room by yourself and be intimidated. I do feel that you can sit with yourself and be insecure. So I would say that a lot of those insecurities may come across or have the same like feeling as being intimidated, but I am questioning that and wondering how much of that. So when I'm when I go into a room and I don't know anyone, that can be intimidating, but more intimidating if you're insecure when you walk in there and you feel like, oh, nobody wants to talk to me. Well, you just walked in.
Let me ask you this, Kim, and not to get on that one point there about the intimidation versus insecurity, because I think they flow in line, but that's I think that's beside the point. But I did want to ask you, do you think that a woman may feel a certain kind of way if she's dating a man who isn't at a certain level? Do you think that could be something that's happening as well?
I mean, it could be, but I can say that I don't think I've ever asked anyone how much they make, and I've never gotten in that conversation. So I was married for a long time, and I was a stay-at-home mom when I didn't make a lot of money, and so I made nothing because I was a mom. But I think that the intimidation part is what I have a problem with. I don't know that that man would, I don't know how men feel, so I can't say whether they feel intimidated. But I think that if they're insecure because of the money that they're not making, is that because I'm throwing it in their face? I know when I was a stay-at-home mom, or even if I date someone, who makes more money than I do, I hear about money a lot more than if I'm paying for it. Then I don't hear about money all of a sudden. It's a quiet topic. But when somebody else is paying, they want to bring it up. So I don't know. I think that's a personality, not a. I just feel like the money is the money. It's not, to me, that is not necessarily a gauge of that person's value to me.
All right, there we go. Thank you, Kim. And just to, I pulled up a definition earlier of intimidate because I thought definitions are important. I didn't want us to get caught up too much on the intimidation and insecurity, but here's the definition of intimidated: nervous because you are not confident in a situation. And if you look up nervous, part of the root or part of a synonym for nervous could also be insecure. So within the definition of intimidating is nervousness, and within the definition or a synonym for nervous could be insecure as well. But I think they flow along the lines of the same thing. They have slightly different meanings, but slightly the same meaning. But I think they kind of more or less, I think we all know what we're saying when we talk about intimidated, insecurity, and what have you.
I don't want to feed into someone's insecurity by intimidating them. So I'm not saying that that's okay. I'm just saying that if you walk in the room with confidence and you walk in the room as if you can protect and secure the woman next to you or the people you care about, that's a very different way to walk into the room or into the relationship. If you walk in thinking, oh, I don't make enough, or I'm not good enough, or I shouldn't be here, then there's no way I'm going to believe it because you don't believe it. So whether you feel intimidated by that or whether I intimidated you or you're just insecure, I think that's what we're talking about. I don't know that the words matter as much as whether you can control that or not control it.
Right. All right. Thank you, Kim. Jenny, what you got for us?
Hi. I am definitely a woman who can be honest with the fact that it's harder for me to have respect and admiration for a man who is not really pulling his weight like on his own. Mm-hmm. And that's because I know the road and the sacrifices I've had to make to not just survive, but thrive in America and in the economy. So I'm, if I know what I had to do, I know it's possible. And I can't look at someone with respect who didn't look the problem of money in the face and just solve it, right? Because money's the first problem. Relationships will pose other problems, right? So if that's one problem that you couldn't solve for yourself, when you're in the context of a relationship with me, having to have that kind of problem solving mind where you're going to have to bend over backwards and be really creative to find a solution, I will lack confidence in that, right? Because if I could do it and all I'm getting from my dude is excuses about why he couldn't do it, I'm not, I'm having bigger dick energy than you. So it's not going to work for me because I want to be the woman. I want to feel like a woman, right? And I know that a man's going to want to feel like a man. So if I'm having a stronger mind frame in terms of my level of expectations for myself than a man has, that's going to pop up. And that's why I just choose to not, I've been in that predicament before, and I know it doesn't feel nice to be disrespectful to a man, and I know it doesn't feel nice for the man to be disrespected, right? Mm-hmm. So that's just about me making sure that I don't like being someone who who does that to someone, right? Because they're going to go off and be in other relationships, and that's just going to spoil it for the next person, right? So I make sure that I'm with someone who inspires respect and admiration in me. And so he might not make a lot of money, but he might come from a good family and they have resources, and maybe that, you know, it's going to have to work out some kind of way. But yeah, definitely respect and admiration, I know definitely is important for me, because I know that being emasculated and just being spoken down to or not being treated with respect is something I wouldn't want for anyone to be on the giving or receiving end of, right? It hurts everybody, and just throws everything off, right? So yes.
Yeah. You said something. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that, because you dropped a word there. You talked about, you know, your ability, if you were able to figure things out and problem solve, you know, and you were the man who's not able to do that. Like, really, what's happening here? And I think that's a consideration. I appreciate you for being honest about that it is a factor. You know, income is a factor when you're making an evaluation of a man. You know, because we can get all fluffy and we can speak about what we would like to do, but you know, real world and our ideals are two different things. So thank you, Jenny. But we're getting, let's see here. I guess we got 20 more minutes before we'll end this recording, and then but let's get we haven't heard from Taroko. I hope I said that right. What you got for us?
Hello, everybody. Okay, so this is allow me to give you, this is my first time joining this group, by the way. So
welcome.
And cultural differences come into play, because I'm sure you can hear from my accent, I'm not from here. Mm-hmm. But a lot of things you guys have said I can relate with. And even for the last thing, well, Kim said something that I really, really agree with. For me, apart from the dictionary definitions you gave, insecurities and versus intimidation, I would also use Kim's use the word of insecurity, and I want to use those because of I believe men have this, I guess it's a natural thing, the ego thing, where if things are not working out, whether it's financial wise or whatever, that ego thing, that manly thing, that whatever it is, just kind of takes over. Because I say that because I want to use my sister and my brother, my sister's husband, and my father. My mother made more money than my father. She earned more forever throughout their marriage. And she passed away a couple of years ago. And it's only from my father I kept hearing about how she made more. And she's passed away, like I said, 10 years ago. And up until last year, every now and again, he would bring it up. I never heard that from my mom. So I always wonder, why is he away? Why does he feel the need to talk about my mom making more? Then my brother-in-law lost his job for about 2 years. My family still lives back in Nigeria. He didn't have a full-time job. You know, he had his own business. It wasn't bringing in much income. And every now and again, my sister would send me a text her husband just sent her. He kept on, at that period, he would just, for whatever reason, was finding all these messages that people were sending to him that would say things about how a woman is going to dump you when you don't have money. I mean, it was things along those lines of get ready to be dumped, no money not coming in. And their marriage was still the same. I mean, we're really close. We speak all the time. So it was so much pressure. He was putting her under pressure with so much of those kind of messages. So I'm like, why? She's like, she doesn't even understand. She was so furious. So that's why I say that insecurity part is where I kind of lean more into, not necessarily intimidation, but once a man is not able to provide as he believes he should, it kind of feeds into that insecurity. And sometimes I believe they might go just by assuming women are not liking them for whatever it is, you know. So but back to what what's her name? Sorry, the last person who spoke before me. For me in general, I don't believe, again, I was raised in a home where women always worked, right? My mother had 7 kids and she had 3 different jobs. So we always worked, but it was never a competition thing. I don't care how much you make. I think I was the only one who said on that poll that I don't care how much anybody makes. For me, just once you have a job, that's all that matters, because I don't believe I'm going to be dependent, or I should be dependent on a man, not because I don't need a man, but I see it more of if anything happens. I saw that so many situations where a man just drops dead tomorrow. The woman has never worked. I know so many stories I can tell you personally. The woman has never worked a day in her life and she doesn't know where to start from. So that's how I see it. I'm like, I don't want to be in that kind of situation. I want to be able to, support, even if I'm not supporting right when he's there and all that, but I don't want to be caught unawares and just be out there. You have kids, you don't know where to start. That's part of why I believe everybody should work. I don't think a man needs to make more, a woman needs to make more.
I hear what you're saying, Taroko. You're going on a few different tangents, a few different topics. If we could, and I think you're saying a lot of good stuff there. We just want to keep the conversation narrow to the intimidation thing, if we can. But I think you do make a good point. I understand why a lot of women may not want to go into a situation where they're not able to provide for themselves, because you never know what life can bring at you. But I just want to kind of focus us here about that. But you made some good commentary. Is there anything else you want to say on Taroko? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to that's all I wanted to say.
I got you.
To make that distinction between intimidation versus insecurity. I could relate to that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Tawana, what's up?
Well, I was just going to say, I know we talked about like women treating men poorly, some women treating men poorly if they make more than the man. And then I put in the chat, like as a suggestion for some of the men, if that's an issue, then the man can pay the mortgage as a suggestion. Let him pay the mortgage. The woman makes more money, but he can feel like more of a man. He can pay the mortgage. The woman can pay all the other bills, or she can do all the vacations and he can take care of the mortgage. There's a way to work it out if you have the same goal in mind, which is to build a foundation. But the other thing I was going to bring up was earlier today, I ran across this YouTube video of Big Boy, and he had Corey Holcomb on there. It's from 5 days ago, but Corey Holcomb is speaking on Kanye West, Pete Davidson, and other people. But what was interesting to me was that Corey Holcomb actually stated that. He said that, hey, I don't want a woman that makes more. He basically said, he's like, I want to be the light. He said he wants to be the light. So, I mean, that goes along again with, statements about the man being the provider. I mean, whatever you feel about Steve Harvey, I do believe what he said is true. I believe that men want to feel like they can protect their woman, provide and profess. And so it just works out better when the man is the provider. So, however we can do that to make the man feel like he is confident, I think that's what has to be done. Unfortunately, it is what it is. That's been, I think, has been the downfall of many relationships, is because the men don't feel like they are being valued if they make less, because they're thinking of the fact that they have not made it to a point where they feel financially secure or they feel confident in where they are. And because they're striving to be that provider, we're looking for different things. Men are they're not necessarily looking for the woman to be the provider. They're looking for the woman to be beautiful and whatever. She's got to have a wonderful shape and all of that. Women, we are looking for different things. We're not looking for necessarily, we don't want Igor, but we're not looking for a man to necessarily be the most fine thing in the world. We are wanting the man to be the provider because it's just the way society is and the way we're raised. So I think that plays plays a part in it as well. And that's all.
Good commentary. And I think every couple who are facing different situations, they're gonna have to try to find what works best for them. But I don't think that the solution you presented earlier was like a man paying the mortgage in order to feel more like the man. I think that's just a band-aid. The ultimate thing is your brother just don't have to figure out something to bring his income up. Because I think that just doing a symbolic act like paying a mortgage, I don't think is going to get to the root cause of what's troubling that couple in that relationship. So there has to be other things. I think ultimately, though, folks are going to have to try to find things that are going to work for them. But let me go to Ayana because we haven't heard from her yet, and then we'll circle back. You change your mind?
No, I was putting my hand down, so I would remember to do that. I'll be quick. I would never ask a man how much he makes. I feel like a man, if he's gonna show me he's a provider, he's gonna show me just in the way he treats you in dating. I may have had one person I dated ask me how much I make, but usually men don't ask me how much I make. I mean, I know we can tell certain things from what people have or what they got going on, but I mean, I think, you know, especially like a guy like over 30, he's going to show you, you know, he's going to want to impress you and show you like I'm doing something with myself. So for me, it's.
Do you try to get a gauge of that though?
I mean, you can tell. I mean, first of all,
Or
I'm not.
is that something you actively try to do? I know you don't
I mean,
ask a man.
you have to if you're marriage.
Right.
Like if you're
Right.
just trying to kick it, I mean, you just gotta be able to go to same places together and not feel broke. But if you're marriage minded, you do care about those things. But for me, I'm not a capitalist, and I mean that in a very political way. So I'm looking at a man's character. And usually if someone has a good character, unless they're a monk, they're getting money in this world because we live in a capitalist society. So you got to have money to be able to do things. It's currency, it's energy. But I'm not asking a man how much do you make. He's going to show me if he's really the type to share and be a provider. I mean, that's just my personal experience and opinion.
Yep. All right. Yeah, I think that's true too. Yeah, I don't think we have to ask directly. I think more or less you can get a vibe for where a person's at just by their lifestyle choices, unless a person is does some extreme things lifestyle wise, like they're living above their means and they're running up debt. Then you won't really get a good idea of where a person's at. Or you could have a person who could be extremely wealthy and he could just be living in a humble manner, and you won't get a true sense of where he's at either. But I think in general, for most people, we can more or less get a sense of where people are at financially. Steven, what's up?
What's up, brother? All right, man. There was so much said, and wow. First, I want to hit on the insecurity thing. I think even in a relationship, when somebody is insecure, it is the partner's job to give them reassurance. And I wholeheartedly believe that, because there are things that even I know my wife would feel insecure about, and it's my job to make sure she's reassured that it doesn't matter. And we all have to, give that person that reassurance and give each and be honest with it, And even when it comes to money, if the person's not making enough and it's a problem for you, you need to tell them. And that's really, and if you're going to disrespect a man because he's not making more than you, just because he's not making more doesn't mean he's not providing. There's a difference. He may not be providing in a certain level, but we're so stuck on the social construct where a woman has to look a certain way, a woman has to play a certain role, or a man has to play a certain role. And the way he plays that role is by making more. Because the man could be paying all the bills and making less. Does that mean he's not providing?
Right.
He could be paying certain bills that's very important. Does that mean he's not providing? He could be the person who's making the food and putting it on the table. He's still providing. But we have minuscule provision to such a dollar sign that it's a problem. In the same way, vice versa with women, I ask everybody here to be self-accountable. What are you doing personally yourself? Because for me, I know I do certain things wrong, and I got to check myself. What are you doing personally yourself that is making that your relationship, whether it's with someone who's making 100K more than you or someone who's making 100K less? What are you doing to make that relationship not work? Because it's not just the money. It's the way you're treating that person, the way you make that person feel. But I want to speak on that first. And now a certain thing, I think something that Kim said, and she said the insecurity, and something that somebody else said about the staying in your lane. Majority of women I think the number says the number of women who are single mothers compared to single fathers is 2-1, because women typically tend to mess with the same men. And that goes back to that physical attraction, and that goes back to that money thing. So you guys end up messing with the same guys, and then when women either have kids or become mothers, your value to a man kind of goes down. And oftentimes men, we always remember the women who treated us a certain way back in the day, because we were very emotional creatures. We have more emotion than women think, but it's not respected nor treated the same as a woman's emotion. I think that's the biggest problem that caused the insecurity, which caused the intimidation.
All right.
That's what I want to say.
So I think you did make a good point earlier when you talked about the man providing in different ways, and we sometimes we reduce it down to a dollar amount. And I think that people coming into a household and contributing, it adds value no matter what, in different ways, because the income, however little or however much it is that the person could be bringing, it could be enough income to move you into a different class. You were in the working class, and then another person came to your situation, and then you're in the middle class. And if you have children, you know, it's a different lifestyle then that happens when you switch classes. You're able to go on a vacation. You're able to expose your child to a different experience that they didn't have otherwise, even though this person wasn't bringing however much to the table or more than you. They brought something, and they brought it in different ways. And I think that is worth consideration. But let me just say this, we're running a little late on time. We're at 9:50. We're gonna try to end it at 10. If we can just go, we got a few more hands up. If we can do like a lightning round and get folks y'all just to weigh in and be brief, and then we'll go ahead and we'll open it up in a big gallery and just end the night and just talk. But just do a lightning round. Everybody just keep your commentary brief and we'll run through y'all. All right, Educate, what's up?
Yeah, I just need a minute. So just responding directly to Tawana a while back. Hope I'm saying your name correctly. Love the energy. But I noticed that, just what I got from her take was it sounded like a woman's niceness is conditioned upon how much he earns. I'm just like, why not? She to kind of get over that. It's like, all right, I can pay for this vacation and you just do something with the kids, make them feel like, or you could just be nice to them. I'm just like, what? You knew that he was an Amazon factory worker when you met him. He never had aspirations of owning a warehouse of his own or owning his own shipping company. So I'm not speaking to you, Tawana, personally. I'm just saying in general. I'm wondering, why is it that in the marriage, the man that you married, why is it now an issue and something that you are attacking him on? So just my last thing, I'm out. If he's intimidated by your perspective, if he's intimidated by your success, that's his problem. If she's using her success as a weapon to attack him with, she's an aggressor. That's all.
All right, I'll let y'all.
Can I briefly respond?
There's gonna be time after this. Just let me get through these last hands, and y'all can chop it, and y'all can dialogue in the after show, as it were. But I just want to get through these last folks because I gotta start. I'm gonna start wrapping up for bed while y'all are going at it. All right, Renee, just go ahead and get it in real quick if you can.
So quickly, I just wanted to say, I don't think it's necessarily exclusive to romantic relationships. I think that insecurity factor can pop up even if it's two friends, siblings. When anybody is in close proximity, people are going to show their wealth in some type of way. So you always have that one person where they say, oh, when you make it, you get quote unquote haters. So I think that simply because the closest person to you is the person you're in a romantic relationship with, that's when it will show up more. And I don't think it's also necessarily just dollar per dollar you have to make more. I think there's also steps that there's a reason why that someone's making more money. It's like, why aren't you making more money? Are you resourceful? Are you ambitious? Do you even have the intent to make money? So I think those are the things that women are looking for. It's not necessarily that, oh, you bring home a check that's 200,000, but are you resourceful? Are you even trying? Do you have good time management? So I think those are kind of things that people are missing, because once you have certain things in order, the money is going to come. So when we don't see those actual character traits from the beginning, I think that's more of the turnoff than the actual check that it is. So that's pretty much it.
All right, thank you. Now you did it in under a minute. Thank you. All right, Elijah, what's up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I definitely agree with the comments that Stephen made. And I think one point that is important to make is that generally dollar for dollar things cost more now. So, and as we can say, in the city of Atlanta, right, you're gonna have a lot more people are making middle class wages. However, and so in your mind, say if you're making $60,000+, you are thinking in your mind, I should be able to have a certain lifestyle. Unfortunately, it does not necessarily equate to what your dream truly is. So what happens is you go out and you start outspending more than you should be spending, right? So when you talk about the men's is supposed to be a provisionist, right? He is to provide. If he's only able to provide the $200,000 home, but in your brain you want the $500,000 home, it is okay. What is the purpose here, right? It is saying, hey, is it really worth me projecting this idea of intimidation because I want this $5,000 home?
You could wrap it up for us, Elijah.
This lifestyle versus coming to the point of wanting someone to actually provide at a means that provision makes.
All right, thanks, Elijah. HM, sorry, y'all, I'm rushing y'all through because we're about to end this thing. HM, what you got for us, if you can be brief?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I want to expand upon something Renee said. You know, financial insecurities can pop up in any relationship. And I think that the main point here is not so much finances. It is the main point that the basic fact of the matter is that there are more women than men. There are more up and coming women than men. There are more women than men. Men are not going to give up that advantage. That is an advantage that they use, some of them use, and they walk the dog on it. There have been painfully, too many of our men lost in drug wars, gang wars, drugs, and then you have all of these down low men. They have options. And as long as you have this numbers game, this very skewed numbers game, you can come up with as many excuses as you want to. It is not going to change until the numbers change. And that is going to take some generations.
Okay. She said some men are walking the dog on the numbers advantage. I got you, H. I'm sorry. Let me go ahead and wrap up, and maybe you can you said a lot there. And those are, you probably had like 3 different conversations there that can be kind of broken up into whole separate discussions there. But for the sake of time, we just can't get into it right now. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in this Tuesday evening. I hope that this conversation was of value to you.
See, somebody just mentioned something about the plummeting price of pussy. So,
I'm sorry. I'm gonna mute you real quick, HM, because you're gonna have now. I got to do some editing before we upload it to YouTube. So YouTube, we upload these recordings to YouTube. If y'all want to catch the playback, and I hope that people did get some value from this conversation. And I hope you had the chat laugh, AJ, but I hope that people did get some value from this conversation for ways that we can improve and start to turn this ship around. And if I can just say one more thing, just like let's be mindful of our tone and our rhetoric, the things we say about each other, the perceptions that we have about each other, and the assumptions that we make about each other, and just be mindful of the world's watching, and we're the culture. And we can change this, we can be that change. But thank y'all again. Reminder, so we're tapped out on the football game. If people want to join our tailgate, it's this Sunday. You can still join the tailgate. You got to contribute like $25, I think is what we're asking now. So that's going to be that's Sunday. But I think we're just full on the tailgate, Anna, to be honest. And then we got the New Year's Eve masquerade ball, New Year's Eve, of course. Just go ahead, if you plan on attending, go ahead and RSVP so we can get an idea who all's coming. And if you can, just go ahead and put your go ahead and get your ticket too, so we can figure out. Right now, I think we're about 1/4 to 1/3 of people contributing that we need in order to say it's a go or it's not a go. So if you do plan on attending, go ahead and get that in so we can pull a trigger on it and we can start to really get some stuff together for it. But thank y'all again. Good night. This is the end of the formal conversation. Have a blessed week. Until the next one, we'll see y'all. We're going to keep it going a little bit, but I'm going to stop the recording and I'm going to get ready for bed. Where to stop the recording. Anybody, just raise your hand at the bottom of Zoom and weigh in. Anything, or we all just in agreement here? Did I do that? I know I didn't do that good a job. All right, we got one brave soul. All right, Steven, what's up, man? Lay it on us.
All right. So I'm gonna say I don't think men are intimidated by women who make more. I think a lot of this is much more about the fact that it's not that men are intimidated. It's much more that you'd automatically X yourself out because you don't think you can be that man that she wants, because the expectation of society is that a man's supposed to make more. And as a provider, you're supposed to make more. You be the person go out, bring the bread in. So they find out a woman makes more. Most men would just say, okay, she ain't really gonna want me. So there's no point of me really shooting my shot or doing anything else. And on top of that, I think a lot of the data kind of shows that a lot of times, what it doesn't show is a lot of times when a woman does make more, she typically would treat the man as if he's a child or expect him to do certain things that will be of a woman, taking care of the house or doing more around the house, especially inside the house. So therefore, the dynamic changes. So the man would seek outside, go outside the relationship to feel like a man again. So therefore, I mean, I think it's a lot more than just intimidation that goes into this factor.
Right. So would you date a woman who makes significantly more than you?
I'm married to a woman who makes more than me.
Okay. And how the dynamics work there? Is do you find is there any struggle in that, or is it communication the key, or is not really a thing?
The biggest thing is communication, but also respecting one another as a person, not just as a role. Because at the end of the day, yes, makes about 10K more than me. But at the exact same time, we got to respect each other because we are still individuals, regardless of you're my wife. You're still a person, and I'm still a person. We still have feelings. So therefore, so when you have that mutual respect, you're kind of good there.
All right. Thank you for sharing, Stephen. And I, true story. I was with my ex, we were together, and for the majority of our relationship, I made more than her. And I told the story before, but she had got a promotion on the job, and immediately after she got that promotion, things switched. And she had made more than me at that time, but I think because of investments and other stuff, and anyway, stuff we watched out, I still had more disposable income than her. But anyway, I just say all that to say that there's definitely a mind shift change. I think that sometimes some women can have when when they become the boss at work, and they may transfer some of that energy at home. So I definitely don't think it's just men being intimidated, as Stephen kind of hinted at. There's definitely multiple factors. And 73% said yes, 5% said no, and 23% said, what you talking about? Go where you celebrate. I got that. The second one was, do you support and encourage Black people that date outside the race? 8% or 3 people said yes, but only the women. That's interesting. Let's see here. And yes, find love where it finds you. So the majority of people do support that. Do you support men flying to other countries to find themselves a wife if they can't find a wife of their standards in the U.S.? And interestingly enough, in the room with majority women, 73% said yes. If you can't find a woman of your standards here, I support you going overseas. And that leads us into just a quick little point that I want to hit on before we get started with this. And people are still coming in. Let me stop sharing that. And let me open up the presentation here. Share screen. Share that one. Make sure the sound is on because I want y'all to hear this. All right. So that's up. That's up. People still pouring in here. Give me a second. Trying to get going. Okay. So the Passport Bros is basically for people who are unfamiliar. Marco, Marco's still letting people in. Thanks, Marco. The Passport Bros, for people who are unfamiliar, basically just a group of Black men. And really, to me, it almost started as an online contingent of brothers who are going overseas because they feel that they can't find a wife of their standards overseas. But recently, something had came up and it's been trending on TikTok. I don't know how many people here on TikTok, but it was this video, and I'll just play it and then we'll talk about it here. It's only a few minutes.
So I know a lot of these Passport Bros, and especially Black men, are in my comments asking me why I'm talking about this. It's not my fight. And before anything, I'm a woman, so I'm always going to stand up for women regardless of race. And one thing that really bothers me about this is these same Passport Bros are the men who probably tried to hit on me in the US before they realized that we don't like them either. I'm from a town that really doesn't have that many Asian women, especially Asian women who look like me. Like I said, you guys, I'm adopted. I grew up in a white family in the Midwest, so I have no beauty standards from South Korea. I'm a thick woman. I weigh about 165 pounds. I'm 5'5", so honestly, the brothers like to holler, and they still do. Regardless of what some men in the comments are trying to say, that Black men aren't checking for Asian women. Yeah, right. Check my DMs. But anyway, pretty much every time I met a Black man, he thought it would be a flex to say something like, yeah, I like my women foreign. I like my women exotic. And I don't know why they decided to say that to me, if they thought it would make me feel good or something, but for me, it's always a red flag. And so I would dig in a little bit further and say, well, what do you mean by that? Like, because I'm a white girl on the inside. My family is white. I grew up in a white community in a small town in the Midwest. So I might look exotic, but I'm Wonder Bread white on the inside. So anyway, whenever these guys would say this, I'd be like, well, you're about to be in for a big disappointment if you're expecting a submissive, docile Asian to take care of you. But it really bothered me when these guys would say, yeah, I don't like black women, because that's what it always came down to, that they didn't date black women regardless if they were black or not. And their moms are black, their sisters are black, their cousins are black. I'm like, would you say this to their face? That's weird. So I kind of pick and prod after I already decided, yeah, I'm done with this, I'm out, because anybody who says something like that just is an immediate red flag. But it always came down to the same stupid stereotypes that black men always have to say about women. They're loud, they're masculine, they don't know how to treat a man, they wear fake hair. So what? So what? You don't have to put down an entire race of women because you have a preference. And honestly, like, I've dated pretty much every race.
So then the delay in marriage and remarriage rates and so forth are very much related. The psychology of the relationship between...
Sorry, let me finish playing that. I got multiple things going on here, y'all. Sorry.
Race, every ethnicity. I'm Ms. Worldwide when it comes to dating. Only common denominator is black hair and dark eyes usually. But I've never heard any group of people, group of men, put down their own women more than I've heard black men do it in pursuit of other women. And I just find it really disheartening. And I understand why this divide is getting bigger, but I don't want to be a part of it. So I hate it, and I had to speak on it.
Okay, so y'all heard from her, and that's been a trending moment, because the passport bros thing, believe it or not, I know some of you may or may not have heard of it, but it's becoming a thing, and I think a lot of it's fueled by some of these online spaces and what have you, and it's becoming more and more prevalent, where we're seeing black men who really support this movement and who are really for it, and most of the people seem to support people, you know, brothers doing that or sisters or whoever doing that. But the thing that I think is a cautionary tale, and it's going to lead us into the talk about the psychology of black relationships, is that we need to be careful and mindful, I think, of the messages that we send and the things that we say about one another, and to whom we say it to, and the reasons why we're saying those things, because there's definitely an agenda, I think. And we've talked about it on several different fronts before, but there's definitely an agenda, and I don't see the benefit of black men and black women who decide to date outside the race to get online or even to talk to other groups of people and to disparage each other. And that's just going to lead us into the psychology of black relationship. And this is Dr. Amos Wilson, psychologist and social theorist. But just listen to what he has to say. I don't have a video for it, but just listen, because I think he's raising some good points, and it's all kind of connected, I think. I know this is off topic from the intimidation thing. We're going to get on it, y'all, believe me, but I got to lay the groundwork.
Black males and females then has to be looked at within context. We have to look at the reality of the kind of education both black males and black females deal with. We operate on assumptions about what is right behavior and wrong behavior in our relationship one to the other, what one should or should not do. And we really, as people, given the fact that we live in a very different social situation, have not really stopped to examine whether we should accept a lot of these moral rules and approaches that we do. They've not been brought up for examination. We are operating often on ways of expressing love. If you love me, you'll do this. If you love me, you'll make this. What do you mean by that? Are you in a position, given your political, economic situation in the world, that you can express your love through this symbolic means that you have gotten from another group with a different history and in a different economic situation? Or are you going to say, that's what a man's supposed to do? A man, regardless of the reality of his economic, social, or political situation? Or men, that's what a what? A woman is supposed to do. What kind of woman? Under what kind of circumstances? Are we then operating on a different, on a set of rules, expectations, and perceptions that in no way reflect the realities that we're in as people, and therefore imposing these artificial expectations on each other and fighting and hurting each other and destroying our children and ultimately destroying our people as a result thereof? We got to ask that. And when you ask that and answer that, it's got to enter into the education of your children. It's got to enter into the redefinition of the relationship between black males and black females. We are cursing each other out over somebody else's rules and mores and attitudes and so forth. Often you see a culture lays these expectations down on us without qualification. And they said, well, if you're in this position, maybe you need to modify this in this sort of way. No, this is what a man is supposed to be. This is what a woman is supposed to do, no matter what happens. And when they don't meet up to it, you got a right to call names, to walk out, to destroy children, and do all the other kind of things we do to each other. You see? In other words, in society represents itself in people. And this society represents itself in us.